Hello, I'm Laura Warrell, author of Sweet, Soft, Plenty Rhythm. Sweet, Soft, Plenty Rhythm is about the women in a womanizing jazz musician's life. So each chapter is told from a different woman's perspective. In the beginning of the book, Circus Palmer, the jazz musician, discovers that his most beloved bedmate is pregnant, Maggie. Instead of facing his responsibility, he leaves her and goes back to Boston where they're from and starts connecting with past lovers, new lovers, family members, all of the women in his life, and wreaks a little havoc on the way. So Circus Palmer was inspired by a man that I was in a relationship with. He was a musician, very charismatic, very interesting, but also very hard to pin down. And I started to wonder what it was about men like that, or people like that are so engaging and so compelling that it's hard to walk away from the relationships even when you're not getting what it is you're looking for. And that's where Circus was born. I turned him into a jazz musician, a trumpet player, a smart, feisty, interesting guy, and hopefully he will be compelling to readers as he was compelling to the women who meet him. So there are so many stories about womanizers, playboys. We've got Casanova, we've got Don Juan, but very often we center the men. We learn about their backgrounds, their histories, the reasons why they are who they are, and treat the women the way they do, but we never hear about the women. That's why I wanted to focus on their stories, focus on their journeys, their goals, their dreams, their lives, and whatever it is that's happening as Circus walks in and out, I wanted to tell those stories and give them a chance to have a voice. That's so hard. It's either Maggie or Koko. Koko is his 14-year-old daughter. Maggie is the very exciting, dynamic drummer who he impregnates. I love Maggie because she, as I said, is incredibly independent. She's not very conflicted internally. She's somebody who knows who she is and finds herself in this circumstance and is going to decide what's right for her, and that's one of the things I really admire about her. I think we all know a girl, or maybe we've been a girl, who was coming into her own and didn't have a lot of guidance. We've got Pia, Koko's mother, who is kind of in her own world, has her own struggles, and then we've got her father, Circus, who is not paying a lot of attention to her because he's got his own goals, and he's got other women in his life. And so Koko has to figure out who she is when she's got all of these emotions and hormones and ideas that she doesn't quite understand. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to really come into her own. I had to give her a lot of challenges, but I think and hope that she's going to be an incredible woman because of what she goes through in this book. I was a little lucky when I started because I was working at the Berklee College of Music. So I would have students who would play their air guitars or play invisible pianos in class, and I would talk to them and ask them, especially if I was at home working on a scene. I would remind myself, when I go to class tomorrow, I'm going to ask that kid what it's like when he's listening to his favorite record. But the other piece is that I really wanted to get a deep dive on the sort of psychology, the background, what it's like to be a jazz musician as opposed to other types of music. And so I read about the, most famous sort of classic jazz artists. I got a couple of really great books where they were just filled with direct quotes from those artists about their work. And what was wonderful about that is that I got a really specific, in-depth look at their lives, their relationships, their challenges, their backgrounds, their families. So I could really create a solid picture, I felt, of who Circus was, where he was coming from, why he was driven to do this work, what it was in his head that inspired him to write, what it sounded like, what it felt like to have that brass in his hands. So I really turned to the greats, and I learned a lot from them. I know that we say there are two sides to every story, but I don't think we always recognize that there really are two sides to every story. And it's not only what happens in those stories, but how we find meaning in those stories and what those stories feel like to everyone who's involved. I think that very often when we have these imbalanced relationships, particularly between men and women, we excuse a lot of misbehavior, and that a woman or anybody who is seeking love or even just companionship deserves respect and deserves reciprocity in some way. I think it's just the point of recognizing that there are two people or many people at the table at the same time, and all of those voices should be heard, all of those perspectives should be recognized, and anybody feeling anything, even the more challenging feelings, we should listen and we should respect each other.